Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
You're fired. You're fired. If you've ever had to utter those words, you know that it comes with a whole lot of emotional mix. Sometimes it feels empowering, sometimes it feels downright frustrating, sometimes you realize you're doing them as big a favor as you're doing yourself. And as a leader, that's a hard place to be. But that's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and it really is amazing to me how hard it is to let somebody go. And I don't care if you're talking about a friendship, a long-term dating relationship, a business partnership, just an acquaintance that you've tried to build a relationship with and it hasn't been so successful. But make them an employee. And not to mention all the legal ramifications of you might have gotten let go because of blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden victimhood kicks in and the clinging and the clutching to, I want my job security, I want my benefits, I want some severance pay, I want a golden parachute as I go out the door. And all of those things become a part of the process of you need to move on with your life. I remember going through a process when I was, it's been many years ago. It was a company called jobs.com. It was the best brand name ever in the .com boom. Jobs.com, cars.com, cats.com, dogs.com, jobs.com. What else would you need to know where to go to get a job? And when I got a job there, they were hiring a whole lot of people really fast. We really expected to see this explosion of opportunity. But as things continued to move on, we were all given this little book called Who Moved My Cheese? And if you haven't read that book yet, that is the quintessential book that's kind of the forbearing of what's to come next. It's the foreshadowing, if you will. The book itself and the training that comes along with it. Usually there's a sales training person who's like, hey, I'm just checking in on things to see how they go. And really what they are is the hatchet man, the axe hunter. They're looking to find the person who's just a little off the mark of their goals to say, hey, it was nice playing. Good luck in your next job. But I've also heard people say, what we're looking for is an opportunity. You ready for this one? It's probably the closest to kind way I've ever heard. We're looking for an opportunity to help you find your next opportunity. Meaning your opportunity here is pretty much done. It's over. You're out. Good luck. Thanks for playing. Now, if you've ever been on either side of that, you know this is not a decision that comes without turmoil. It's hard as a leader, as a manager, as the boss to let people go. Because if you're any kind of good human being and you've invested in the people on your team as a good leader, and you've worked hard as a manager to build a team that's cohesive from top to bottom, then those people that you're having to let go of, they're not just people who are punching the clock and showing up to turn in numbers. Those are friends. Those are people you care about. Maybe you've had coffee with or had a beer with or spent more time than that with. Family vacations, picnics, kids' birthday parties, I don't know. But they're people whose lives you're entwined with. Not just people who report to you and turn in numbers on a regular basis. And so as a leader, a boss, a manager who's responsible for the bottom line, those people who are way above you, who you answer to, whether that's shareholders, stockholders, the board, those are the people who look at you and say, we expect of you a good, solid bottom line. That means trim the fat, increase the production, and do it well. That's what it looks like to have a good, solid bottom line. And they couldn't care less if you have friends. In fact, if you never had another friend, but you delivered that bottom line well, they're going to be happy with you. You're going to keep your job. You're probably not going to have any friends above you, and you may not have any friends below you, but as long as you continue to deliver the numbers, you're going to have the job. Now, the real question is, what happens when, as the leader, as the boss, as a manager, you realize there are people on my team who are remaining on my team because they're my friend. Because they're afraid that if they move on to the thing that they're happier with, they're more productive at, they have more peace about, they'll be letting me down as a friend. Now, on both sides of that fence, you still have the same thing. You have the emotions, you have the drama, you have the severed friendship, you have the loss of a job, the loss of the security, et cetera, et cetera. But there used to be a day, way back in the day, when we had what we called corporate loyalty. You can ask your grandparents about it. We don't see it much today. It's a very rare thing. And that loyalty went both ways. That loyalty said, once you get the job, as long as you do a good job, you show up on time, you meet the expectations, you strive to meet your goals, your annual reviews are solid, you're going to have your job. And there were times when people would be in the same job 20 and 30 years. In fact, you'd have to kick them out at retirement because this is all they've ever done. It's all they know. However, at the end of that 20 or 30 years, there'd be a nice paycheck waiting for them. They've got some money socked away in their savings. They got some money socked away in their pension. They've got some money socked away in their 401k or their retirement fund. And when they walk out the door for the last day on their job, there's a big celebration for them and the family and for you as a company because they've given you 30 years. You probably gave them a gold watch, or maybe now it's aluminum or plastic. But they walk out the door at the end of 30 years and you pay them a little something, something for the rest of their life. And you were, as a company, as a boss, as a leader, loyal to them to keep them in the job as long as they were doing a good job. And they were loyal to stay in the job as long as you kept paying them and rewarding them. See, there's a challenge that happened when people realized that I can actually bid myself like a product for sale. I can approach other companies who do a similar thing or the same thing. They have the same product line, the same services, the same customer base, the same functions in my job. I can actually sell myself to another company and get a little higher pay raise. In fact, I could probably go to them and say, I want more vacation days. I want more time off. I want more PTO. That not just time off, but paid time off. And I want some extra sick days on top of that. And I want a little more of your investment, Mr. Company Man, into my retirement. I want you to match my 401k investment. And I want to make sure that my pay raise goes up a little bit. And so all of those things become the bargaining chips of the employee, especially in an at-will work state like we are where I live in Texas. And so somebody could go get a job, and if you hired them at X number of dollars per hour or X number of dollars per year for an annual salary, they could actually negotiate and say, yeah, I think I want more than that. So-and-so company offered me $10,000 a year more than that, or $3 an hour more than that. And there was a little bit of a bargaining chip if you were a good talent. If you could prove from your resume or your CV that you've got something to bring to the table that not everybody has. You're special. You got some expertise, some background, some experience that's hard to match. I know about a dozen years ago when I was mentoring in the high school, I worked a lot with the seniors and for almost 10 years. And I watched several evolutions of seniors over a 10-year period come and go from the school. And I remember at one time, a young lady raised her hand. She's saying, I'm going to college and I'm going to be in the area of sales and marketing. And I said, that's awesome. She said, I'm hoping my first year out of college, I can make $65,000 to $75,000. I said, well, in the area of sales, that's a very strong potentiality. The possibilities are endless in sales if you find the right kind of product to sell in a market that's hot and you're willing to do the work, especially if you can get in a place where there's also a little commission base in there. Or you can put all that together, you can easily make six figures. But on the marketing side, most of those are corporate jobs. So unless you own a company and you're kind of paying yourself what you want to, you're going to be working for somebody else. And I'll be honest and tell you, at the time, I was still in corporate America. I've been in marketing for many, many years. I worked in a big Fortune 50 company, and there probably weren't, out of 3,500 employees, there probably weren't 10 making in the six figures in marketing. Now, when you put all that in perspective, what I'm saying is you're walking out of college with a 4-year degree, but you're competing with people who've been in this marketing category, not sales, marketing. Those are different. They're different jobs, different roles, different performances, different functionalities within the business. Most people blur the lines. They're not the same. They do go hand in hand. And if you don't do one, the other one doesn't work well, et cetera, et cetera. But in marketing, a first-year intern or first-year employee probably not going to make 6 figures. They might make 40 or 50K at the time. They might make 50. But in all honesty, if that job's paying 60, 65,000 and they're asking, do they want me with 15 years experience or you with 15 minutes experience for the same paycheck, that's going to be really hard to compete with. Your college degree is going to take you a long way, but it's not going to guarantee you a $65,000 a year job. I'm sorry, it's just not. That was very disheartening for them. But your job opportunities are still bid worthy, right? You can still go to another employer and ask for a little more. You can get a little seasoning on your belt and go ask for a little more. You can negotiate. Let's see, the problem became this lack of loyalty. Someone would get in a job and say, oh, now that I have that job, that company name on my resume, I'll go sell myself to these other 10 companies and see who makes a better offer. And it wasn't about a loyalty to the company or the product or the service or the customer base. It was a loyalty to the paycheck. So anything that I could do to get the same kind of cash flow, that's a good idea. And the challenge became, over a period of time, companies realized I can do the same thing. I can shop candidates. Well, yeah, I've got these guys that get 15, 20 years experience and they're costing me $60,000, $70,000 a year in base salary plus benefits, plus bonuses, plus, paid time off and sick leave and vacation leave and maternity leave. And when you start adding all that up, a good employee with 10 or 12 years of longevity could cost you $80,000 to $100,000, where a brand new college graduate, you could put them on the payroll for, I don't know, 40. Well, that means you could have 2 people doing the work instead of 1 for the same kind of expenditure. Why would you not do that? And so both customer loyalty, because now you can bid anything from, do I go to Walmart and pick it up, or do I go on Amazon and pick it up, or do I go to the local boutique on the square and pick it up? And it's instantly a price commodity shopping. Well, so are employees. Because it's all about how much is it going to cost me out of pocket. What's the bottom line expenditure of having that employee versus this employee? Well, then you start adding together that lack of loyalty of the consumer, and you've got a huge ebb and flow of your cash flow every month based on your product sales. And so the margins get tighter and tighter, and then the employees get the opportunity to bid themselves out to somebody else. And so now there's this 3-way bidding war. It's not just, am I buying this product from that company? Back in the day, there were companies who had pretty much a monopolistic lock. If you wanted your brakes done, there were only so many places to get a brake job in town. If you wanted new tires, there were only so many places to get new tires in town. I don't know if you know this or not, but if you're industrious enough now, you can go online to a company like Tire Rack and order your tires without all the markup, have them delivered to your house. Again, if you're industrious enough, put those tires on your wheels and then go pay $40 to have somebody else rotate and balance them. And then install them yourself. That labor can be done by yourself, and it'll save you about $350 to $400. If you're industrious enough and your time is worth it, $350 to $400 is a pretty good saving for somebody when it comes to a set of tires. Back in the day, nobody ever thought that. In fact, back in the day before there was a Walmart tire center, there were only a few places in town to go get your tires done. And they kind of had the monopoly on how much is a tire, how much to install it, how much to rotate and balance it, how much to dispose of it. And they could rack up that bill to $2,500 putting 4 tires on the ground on a Yugo, because you couldn't shop around. Now that you can shop around for your job, for your employee, for your products and services, loyalty is a thing of the past in that arena. We have to realize that when we are leaders and managers and bosses, because we have to build relationships to build loyalty. What does that mean? Well, Bob Berg was right. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. The people you hire, the people you fire, it's all built on know, like, and trust. If you don't trust them, why would you have them around? If you know them well enough to expect how they're going to perform, to continue to be on the rise, they're always looking to better themselves. An employee always wants to learn more, wants to do more, wants to invest in themselves to be a better employee, wants to invest in the company to be a better opportunity, wants to invest in the customer to provide the best product and service. When all those things are true, know, like, and trust continues to increase. But when any one of those is broken, it's really hard to have the loyalty to say, well, I don't trust you anymore. I don't trust the way you treat my clients. I don't trust the way you treat your fellow employees. I don't trust the way you treat me. And so I think we're going to have to part ways. And it may not be based on, are they the best performer? Are they the person you want to hang out with? It may just be based strictly on how they treat a customer. It may be that the customer demands that they be fired. That's a whole new ball of wax. I don't know if you've ever been in that place where the customer wants to fire your employee and they're determined to get them fired. I've been on all sides of that. I've seen that from many, many angles. I've seen clients so upset that they're demanding of the boss that that person be fired. I have friends and family members who've been the target of someone who just didn't get their way. An investigation was done and they were told, no, sorry, you don't get your way in this. And they took it so high as to find the board of investors, donors, and say, I'm going to make life rough for you if you don't see to it that that individual's fired. There was no wrongdoing. There was nothing that was manufactured purely on emotion, but they got the right leverage from the right person at the right time, and it created a problem for the employee. That's not an uncommon thing. Some people get all up in their feelers and they expect to get revenge or get justice through the way they see it. That's not a loyalty thing. That's a whole different kind of a problem. But when you see all of these dynamics working in place in the career field, it's no wonder so many people want to be entrepreneurs. I get up every day and I report to one boss. Woman sleeping beside me for the last 30 years. I get up, we evaluate what the day is going to be. We look at the calendar together. Here's where you're going to be. Here's what I'm going to be. Here's what you're going to do. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's our results by the end of the day. And we go get it. And if it doesn't happen by the end of the day, we get up and we do it again the next day. But there's not a boss breathing down my neck going, you better. I don't have one of those. Just my spouse and me. And a set of dynamic numbers that we have established. But if I get up on a bad mood one day, I can't fire me. So if I don't like myself today, I just got to deal with it. And if there's something that's got to be done, at the end of the day, guess who's responsible? This guy. And if it's done well, guess who gets the credit? My wife. And if it's done wrong, guess who gets the blame? This guy. Why is that? Well, because I chose that life after so many years in corporate America and climbing the ladder in the Fortune 50 company. And there was a day that I just said, this isn't working. They said, this is working for us. We're having to lay a bunch of people off. Here's your severance package. Here's your COBRA. Here's your insurance benefits. They run out on this day. It's nice knowing you. You're out. And I said, I'm out for the last time because this is the 5th time with the same company in 10 years' time, and I'm all done. And I'm not just done with that. By that point, we had figured out how we could work for ourselves doing something anyway. Now, I want to juxtaposition that with what we see in today's quote-unquote gig economy. Because I have millennials. My children are millennials. They're millennials who've grown up in a gig economy. I have one daughter and one son who have worked in the same job for an extended period of time. One almost 10 years, another one now almost 4. And they have put up with all of the nonsense from bosses and peers and clients and customers, and you can hear it in their voice with the stress and the strain, and yet having the steady paycheck, knowing when the money's going to come in, having a pretty good idea how much that money's going to be, knowing that you got benefits if you need to go to the doctor, all that is good. I also have 2 who have been very entrepreneurialistic in their mindset to say, I'm going to do what I need to do this week. And if that means this week I'm going to wash windows, and next week I'm going to hang Christmas lights, and the following week I'm going to be doing something entirely different. I'm going to install tires for a company for a couple of months, and then I'm going to do this for a couple of months. As long as the paycheck comes in to get the bills paid, I'm good. And that gig mentality means sometimes they're driving Uber, and sometimes they're driving DoorDash, and sometimes they're working for Uber Eats. And it's all over the board. It's where is the money coming from today? It's not long term. It's not a career path. Maybe it's a stopgap. Maybe it's a way of saying, I don't want to engage with this world the same way that people have who stayed in the same job for 30 years. Because some of those people who stayed in their job 30 years got to 29 and a half, and the company found a way to boot them out, so they missed that retirement. What? Yeah, that company disloyalty has been a plague in our society, in our culture. Just to ask our elderly. There are so many who worked all their life and thought, well, I'll be able to live on my Social Security. Yeah, it's not what you thought it was. The cost of living has grown faster than Social Security pays out. Well, I have my pension, and I have my 401k, and I have some money in savings, and I made 1 week too long in the stock market, and the crash cost me half of my retirement. And now everything I thought was my standard of living, I got to cut by 60% just to be able to stay. And then add all that to the fact that we have old people today. I say old people, I'm an old people, but I'm not as old as, say, my parents, my grandparents. Some of them are outliving their retirement. My grandmother passed at 92. Some are still alive in their 80s. When you've been retired from 62 years old to 80, that's 18 years of retirement's got to last. That better be a good savings. That better be a good nest egg. And it better be based not on when you started in the job market in the 1950s, but in today's economy. And maybe you don't realize this. Young people who are looking for a job, looking for a career, looking to move into this job world, 10 years ago, well, 20 years ago, 2004, I bought a house that was 3,500 square feet, 5-bedroom, 2 bath with 2.5 bath, with game room upstairs and play areas and a nice size yard and the whole thing, brand new. Bought it, built it from the ground up for $150,000. That same house today would sell for $350,000 to $400,000. When my grandmother bought her house, she paid $3,200. $3,200. Today's average mortgage rate per month. You'll pay that for 30 years. See, things have been changed, flipped upside down. Your job expectations, your job loyalties. And as a boss, as a leader, as a manager, you've got to have compassion for that. And before you say the words, you're fired, you've got to understand there's humanity involved in this. There's retirements, there's vacations, there's family time, there's sick leave, there's medical needs that are going to be directly involved in those jobs. And as a boss, you should have both the candor and the compassion to be able to say, this isn't working for us. I'm going to give you a window of time. I remember when I got my severance package and I signed everything over and they said, here's your end date. You're on salary until this date. Between today and this date, answer questions and put out fires, but your full-time job, and we're paying you to do this, your full-time job is to get another job, whether that's within the organization or outside. Your full-time job is to get another job. That was compassionate. The candor of saying, you're going to be cut, this is going to be done. Now that company, in the next 18 months, laid off 2,900 people. They've since merged with another company. And still a large company, still doing a very similar thing, and they're still around. And I know people who still work there. They've made the pinball, plinko moves from one company to another company to another company. They've been able to hold on to their positions. Yay for them. I don't think I could have managed that. I don't think emotionally I could have lived through that without losing it. Now, maybe you've heard that our new president-elect, who's very famous for saying, you're fired, sees a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. That's what we used to call it when I was in the military, of money being allocated for purposes that it wasn't intended for. Money that's being spent in places where that's not what it was for. And people who have jobs that are, well, they're the kind of employees that you would love to say, let me help you find another opportunity. You're not really cutting it here. You're not contributing to the bottom line in the way that we need you to contribute to the bottom line. And so he has a plan to reposition, replace, move out lots of people. Now, this is going to have a huge economic impact because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to go to the unemployment line. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to have to sell their house and move out of a very expensive market and move into other markets. That means the housing market there's probably going to go down a little bit. People are going to be looking for more jobs. Their spouses who may be working a 2-job income to make sure that they keep all the ends together in that marketplace, they're going to be looking for other jobs. There's going to be a migration out of that place into other places where the cost of living is less, because it's hard to get a job there if you don't work in the government. And when we put all this together, we have to ask ourselves, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And the answer is, I don't know yet. We're going to have to see what the fallout is. We're going to have to see how many lives are impacted by this. But in all honesty, every company at some point has to ask themselves, where am I spending the money that I shouldn't be spending? What am I spending or investing my resources in that's not giving a return to me or to my clients? What could I be doing better? And if we're not, as leaders, bosses, managers, willing to ask that tough question, what could I be doing better? Then the job market is not going to be benefited by us, and we are not going to benefit from it. If we're not asking ourselves, even if I'm at the top of the position, am I the best person for this position? Are there people who could do the job better than me? Should I be looking for another role? Should I be looking to promote somebody into this place? If we're not asking those questions, honestly, regularly, then we're kind of lazy at the performance of what we should be doing. Now, it's unusual for someone who owns a company to step down from that company and hand it over to somebody else, but it does happen from time to time. Sometimes for retirement, sometimes because they realize, hey, I've got talent here who could do this better than myself. Why don't you buy me out? I'm going to move on to something else. I mean, Mark Cuban, Elon Musk, both of them started in a company with a little bit of something invested, grew it to something massive, and sold it off. And if it hadn't been for starting PayPal, there probably wouldn't be a Tesla cash-wise. There wouldn't be an X. It'd still be Twitter, owned by different people. But every time you move into the next phase of your life, you're going to have to sever some relationships, let go of some people, move on from some tasks that you're doing, and learn to do some new ones. That's true of you as a leader, and it's true of your best team members. You've got to have the compassion and the candor to be able to encourage them to find the best opportunity, whether it's in the company or out. And that should be your full-time job as a leader, to identify their talents, their skills, their performances, and help them find the best place to be loyal to themselves for the future. I'm afraid corporate loyalty is a thing of the past. Employee loyalty, it's a thing of the past. Consumer loyalty, it's a thing of the past. It's part of our days gone by, bygone era, if you will. That's okay. It was a good season while it lasted, but it's over. So now let's live in today and ask the question, am I doing everything I can do to be the best leader, the best manager, the best boss for the people that I lead? Am I doing the best for the organization that I lead, or would the organization actually be better off if I moved on? If you're willing to ask that question, it may not be that you need to move on, but it may be that you need to do better. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I encourage you to go to storypoweracademy.com and check it out. Look at the different classes, the different levels, the different things that are available. You can take a lot of them a la carte. But spend some time there and see if that's the kind of thing that would change the way you communicate as a leader, as a pastor, as a counselor, as a political leader. And if that will help you, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Again, only 10 people in the elite speakers. You will have to apply for that. But if you're a candidate, I'd love to have that conversation with you. I'm J Loren Norris with Story Power Academy. I look forward to seeing you inside.